like to call to order the May 19th Miamisburg City School Board meeting. Thanks for coming tonight and welcome to our meeting. Chris Amsler, our president, is headed to Alabama tonight, so we'll be missing him, but can we please stand for the pledge? The district mission is to foster a positive, nurturing, and safe environment to inspire and support ongoing learning and the development of individuals as productive members of society. We must be able to conduct our meetings in an orderly fashion. Our expectation is that at all board meetings is that everyone conducts themselves civilly and respectfully. In the event anyone is disruptive and interferes with the meeting, they will be asked to leave. If they do not, we will request that law enforcement assist in the process. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Amsler. Mr. Daffler.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mrs. Neese.
Here.
Mr. Toadvine.
Present.
Dr. Blessing.
Present.
I am here. Mr. Homan.
Here.
All right. First on the agenda, we have the adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion, please?
I move that we adopt the agenda dated May 19th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, first by Mr. Toadvine and a second by Mr. Lewis. Any questions, discussion? Next, we have approval of minutes. The recommended action is the approval of financial committee meeting minutes held on March 17th, 2022.
You have to vote on that. You have to vote on this individually. So there was a first and second, so we just need to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Roll call.
Roll call for adoption agenda. Mr. Daffler.
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes. Next, the approval of minutes. The approval of financial committee meeting minutes held on March 17th, 2022. The regular board meeting minutes held on April 21st, 2022. And the special board meeting / work session minutes held on April 25th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
I'll move for the approval of minutes, excuse me, March 17th, 2022, regular board meeting minutes, April 21, 2022, and the special board meeting work session minutes, April 25th, 2022.
I second.
So first by Lewis, second by Daffler. Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes.
Mr. Daffler.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Okay, next we have the approval of the financial report dated April 30th, 2022. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve, for the approval of the financial report for April 30th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, first by Mr. Daffler and second by Mr. Toadvine.
The only thing I wanted to point out is now on the financial dashboard report, which is at the very beginning of the financial report, you'll notice that the variances that we've been seeing in prior months are now very low. The only one that you'll see is that there's actually a 6,661 change. And as I was working on the forecast, I had finalized it, and then we actually received more revenue in a certain line than I had been expecting. And so you'll see that the net impact is a $6,661 increase or above the forecast on about $56 million. So it is a somewhat of a rounding error, but it is unfavorable for the district. Everything else, you'll see all of the current year-to-date variances are at zero.
The best kind of impacts, favorable.
Yes, I like it when the color is green.
Yeah.
Discussion or questions? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes. Next, we have the approval of the financial report, a recommended action. Wait, what did I forget? Oh, okay, sorry.
You're good.
Rec-
You're good.
Recognition of our appreciation for our retirees. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt resolutions of appreciation for the following employees. Let's start first with Mary Kay Eckhart, who has 31 years, and Mr. Lewis is going to read that resolution.
I don't have a resolution. Resolution of appreciation. Whereas Mary Kay Eckhart has rendered 31 years service to Miamisburg City Schools, and whereas Mary Kay Eckhart's performance, conduct, and sincerity in carrying out her duty has exemplified the highest level of achievement, and whereas Mary Kay Eckhart has distinguished herself as a teacher in the Miamisburg City School District, now, therefore, be it resolved that the Miamisburg City Schools Board of Education pass this resolution as a token of its appreciation for her outstanding conduct, and that such resolution become part of the permanent minutes of said Board of Education.
Mrs. Eckhart, can you come on up?
Who would have thought, right? We went through elementary together.
I bet she has some stories.
She would have never put me in this seat back then. She's usually in the hallway.
Where's your speech at?
Yeah. Now, did you want to say something, Mary Kay? Yeah, say something. Yeah.
That's good.
No, Miamisburg's in my heart. I grew up in Miamisburg. I attended Kinder School. My mom taught Kinder School. I taught Kinder School. So I just really appreciate Miamisburg for saying that we are Miamisburg. And the district is one of the best. So thank you for many years.
Pat Mayhew. Okay, Pat, do you want to go ahead and come on up while we read your resolution? Is Pat here, Mayhew? Okay. And yeah, I just want to say something about Mary Kay. It's a real loss to our district. I volunteered, I taught with her, but I also volunteered a couple years ago outside of her classroom for one of her coworkers. And I could hear the things that she was teaching and saying to her students. And there's just not going to be anyone else like you, Mary Kay. You were in your element, that's for sure.
Hi, Pat. Pat has rendered 13 years service to the Miamisburg City Schools, and Pat's performance, conduct, and sincerity in carrying out her duty has exemplified the highest level of achievement. And Pat has distinguished herself as a speech pathologist. I think I need one right now. A speech pathologist in the Miamisburg City School District. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Miamisburg City Schools Board of Education pass this resolution as a token of its appreciation for her outstanding conduct, and that such resolution become part of the permanent minutes of the said Board of Education. Congratulations, Pat.
Did you want to say anything?
Pat, would you like to say
You
anything?
want to speak?
Well, I'm going to just say, I agree with Kay. I moved here 13 years ago from Arizona, and I love living in Ohio, and I love this area, and it's a great school district, and I'm so glad I was able to move here.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, can Mary Grace Miller come up, please?
Hi, Mary Grace. How you doing? Whereas Mary Grace has rendered 15-year service at Miamisburg City School, and whereas Mary Grace Miller performance, conduct, and sincerity in carrying out her duty has exemplified the highest level of achievement, and whereas Mary Grace Miller has distinguished herself as a teacher in the Miamisburg City School District now. Therefore, be it resolved that the Miamisburg City School Board of Education pass a resolution as a token of its appreciation for her outstanding conduct, and that such resolution become part of the permanent minutes of said Board of Education. Thank you, Mary Grace.
Did you want to say anything, Mary Grace? Thank you. Yeah. All right, next we have Brad Myers. You want to come on up, Brad? Okay. Whereas Brad Myers has rendered 16 years service to Miamisburg City Schools, and whereas Brad Myers' performance, conduct, and sincerity in carrying out his duty has exemplified the highest level of achievement, and whereas Brad Myers has distinguished himself as a secondary academy teacher and a social worker in the Miamisburg City School District, now, therefore it be resolved that the Miamisburg City School Board of Education pass this resolution as a token of its appreciation for his outstanding conduct, and that such resolution become part of the permanent minutes of said Board of Education. Brad, do you have your speech?
I didn't have one, but I tell you, this one's gonna be easy. So I'm a graduate of Miamisburg. I've lived here my whole life. There's no way I can express to you how much I love the city, love the district, and I always felt incredibly blessed to have the opportunity to give back just a piece of what I was given when I was here. I failed miserably at that, but I think that I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that. So thank you all very much.
I like to say that Brad was one of my students many, many years ago when I was teaching. He played ball for me. He played ball the way he taught the kids, and that was 110% full go all the time. And you'll be missed, buddy.
Thank you.
Want me to tell him about my car? When you guys picked, when I was coaching him, Brad, he was big boy back then, and there was a whole bunch of other big boys on that team. And I go out to leave one night, and they picked my truck up and carried it and put it in a place where I couldn't get out. Yeah.
Sure, he deserved it.
Yeah, they paid for that one. Had to tell that.
Next, we have Sally Royer. Sally, you want to come on up?
Whereas Sally Royer has rendered 22 years service to Miamisburg City Schools, and Sally Royer's performance, conduct, and sincerity in carrying out her duty has exemplified the highest level of achievement. And Sally Royer has distinguished herself as a social worker in the Miamisburg City School District. Therefore, be it resolved that the Miamisburg City Schools Board of Education pass this resolution as a token of its appreciation for her outstanding conduct, and that such resolution become part of the permanent minutes of said Board of Education. Sally Royer.
Not the best speech giver, believe it or not, because I'm pretty talkative usually. But, it has been a great opportunity. I have loved every single minute of it. I love this community. I love the staff. I love the businesses, the churches. I love everything. I love the families and I love the children. And to be given the opportunity to come here with a clean slate, no one's saying this is the way it's going to be done. You can create it. You can do it. You can have it, and to have the years that I had to watch the children grow up to be parents and the parents to raise their children and just to be a part of it all and see all the accomplishments. I'm very, very happy. I'm very proud to have been given the opportunity, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to take the opportunity to thank Sally because I know she's touched a lot of children's lives and made a big difference in a lot of families' lives. And you're an amazing woman, and thank you.
Yeah, and basically what Dale said, I know she has loved and she's been loved, and she has worked her tail off, and we really appreciate that on behalf of our students, and they're some of our most vulnerable students, and Sally, that you've done good work. Thank you.
Yep.
And then next we
Next
have
is-
Mary Wilson.
And I get to give Mary her resolution of appreciation. Come up here and stand up, boy. Yeah. Thank you. You got to face everybody so they can see you. Mary Wilson has rendered 22 years of service to the Miamisburg City Schools. And whereas Mary Wilson's performance, conduct, and sincerity in carrying out her duty has exemplified the highest level of achievement, and whereas Mary Wilson has distinguished herself as a nutrition service employee, monitor, and transportation assistant in the Miamisburg City School District, now therefore be it resolved that the Miamisburg City Schools Board of Education pass this resolution as a token of its appreciation for outstanding conduct, and that such resolution become part of the permanent minutes of the said Board of Education. Congratulations, Mary.
All right. Can I have a motion to accept those resolutions, please? Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Mary.
Can we please have all the retirees come up for a picture, please?
We'd like all 147 years of experience
Yeah.
together in the
Yeah.
same picture.
Right.
Yeah, bring your certificates. This is a big moment. I think they want you up here. We can get out of the way. We don't want to ruin your picture.
You know me, it has to be settled. There we go.
And now can we have a motion for those resolutions, please?
I'll move for the recognition of appreciation for our retirees.
Second.
Right, first by Lewis, second by Toadvine. Roll call, please.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine?
Yes.
Mrs. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Daffler?
Yes.
All right, next we have recognition of citizens, staff, and students. Our first recognition will be the Ohio School Board Association Business Honor Roll. Whereas public schools and local businesses are an integral part of this community, and whereas many local businesses play a crucial role in supporting our schools, and whereas the economic health of our community, state, and nation depends on a strong public school system, and whereas collaboration between local public schools and local businesses strengthens schools and the business community alike by providing a well-trained and highly educated workforce, and whereas an excellent public school system is vital to the quality of life in this community and fundamental to preserving a strong democratic society now and in the future. Therefore, be it resolved that the Miamisburg City School District Board of Education names the following businesses to the 2022 OSBA Business Honor Roll, showing appreciation for the firm's ongoing support of this community's public schools. Your work has aided this community in focusing on the goal of providing the best public schools we can for every child who attends them. So we have 5 nominees, and we're going to start with Farmers and Merchants Bank. Is Sean Myers here? Okay. For years now, Sean has provided a memento for our Student of the Month, which we really appreciate. And yeah, congratulations. Did you want to say anything, Sean?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure you do.
We created this award probably 8 years ago, and it was one of those things where I was just thinking, well, what can we do that's different? We already have a way to recognize academics and athletes, and I'm like, there are so many amazing children that do great things that aren't always the brightest, kind of like me when I was in school. And so I just wanted to find a way to really, find a way to honor those kids that are just working hard, doing a great job, and just doing special things within the classroom, and kind of point them out. It's been a very rewarding experience, and I love when I present awards personally.
They love you, they're your silver dollar. So,
Yes.
congratulations.
Yeah, and that's what the memento is.
And a certificate.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sean.
And then next we have Hamburger Wagon. Jack, are you here, Jack Sperry? I know you said you were going to come. There he is. Okay. Hi. You were nominated by, the board nominated the Farmers and Merchants, but you were nominated by Jason Osborne for the $1,100 towards the girls' halftime three-point challenge and the $15 gift certificate, even if you miss. So thank you so much. Did you want to say anything?
I appreciate the recognition. It's kind of a surprise. Just trying to do things to help the school in any way we can. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Ron Holt as well. I'm also one of the founders of the Rock Movie Tomato Festival, and Ron and I, every year that we had that festival, we haven't for a few years because of COVID. It'll be back bigger than ever next year. But we give money back to the Boys and Girls Athletics annually on that. Our biggest contribution today is going into the high school and noticing that the boys' locker room for basketball looked like a college locker room. Fantastic. And the girls dressed in like a broom closet. So Ron and I donated, along with Rotary, also Rotary donated money. I think the total amount was $12,000 that we put together just a state-of-the-art girls' locker room for basketball in Miamisburg. So all you girls there, if any play basketball and get to the high school level, you'll have fantastic facilities to work with. So, but I appreciate the recognition. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take a quick picture afterwards. But also, you had some great national acclaim a few weeks ago with
Yeah.
Miamisburg,
We did.
right, on the map?
We did. CNN.News came out with their list of 5 iconic hamburger businesses in the United States, of which Miamisburg's Hamburger Wagon was one of them. So I was really pleased about that. People called me and said, "My gosh, Jack, you're famous." I said, "I am not famous. The Hamburger Wagon is famous. I'm just the current caretaker for the last almost 15 years. Just trying not to screw it up." So that's all I do.
I'm hoping Guy Fieri's gonna show up any day. We're gonna be on drive-ins, diners, and
Yeah.
dives.
Yeah.
That would be fun, but do I have to tell them that it was it? Because I, he likes to know, so. Thank you very much, I appreciate the recognition, thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
And then next we have the Modern Bliss and Spa. I don't think Lindsay's here. I believe she had to work tonight, but I thought that it would be nice if Rebecca Huber would talk about why she nominated the Modern Bliss and Spa.
I am happy to do that. Do I need to come to the mic?
Sure, yes. I'm sure Mr. Priest would appreciate it.
My voice carries, but that's okay. So early December, Lindsay Stepp gave me a call and said that Modern Bliss wanted to do something to give back to the kinder community. And she asked what we could do. And I said, well, do you want to sponsor a family for Christmas? And she said, that's not enough. We want to do more. So I put her in touch with Madison Schaefer's my counselor, and of course, Miss Sally. And they came up with a plan. They did a coat drive and gift card drive in the salon, and everybody who brought in a coat or gift card was, and I should have done it because they gave a great basket. They did a drawing for a basket that had massages and lots of merchandise and free haircuts. It was about $500 worth of goodies in this basket. And they raised about $3,000 to, which they went out and got coats, they went pajamas, they got some shoes. They got in touch with Power Sports, who gave us an entire crate of wicking material shirts that we could give out to the kids. We ended up this year giving about 100 of those coats away, and the rest are all just waiting for next of them. So we just wanted to express our sincere appreciation.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And then next we have Papa's Pizza. Are Dale and Connie Jennings here? Yeah. There they are. Okay. Yeah, and I thought that since Mr. Dale Geyer nominated you, that I thought he could say a few words.
I'll just say he's the man, the myth, the legend.
And just for you, Dale, there's 3 Dales in the building right now. Just it'll never happen again in our lives, I'm sure. Dale and Connie James, just pillars in our community. From doing staff luncheons to sponsoring anything that you ask them to do, throwing pizza parties for kids. I always appreciated that. They're pillars of our community. They give, and don't know when to stop. They sponsored my skating parties way back when at Neff for the bragging rights of kids. So if kids would beat me at air hockey at the skating party, they could get their certificate, bragging rights to come on the news, and then also be able to get a free pizza from Dale and Connie Jennings. They're just wonderful people. They hired our own staff members, our own community members to work in their restaurant as well. So they'll be very missed. I'm glad they're around. Thank you.
Get a picture, just so you talk and then stay put.
Okay. We're just Miamisburg kids that did our best, and everything you give away comes back tenfold. So that's it. Hopefully it comes back this summer. We sold the place back in March, and they're trying to get it back bigger and better than ever. So we'll see what the future brings. So thanks everybody.
Thank you. Next, we have Roosters, and that's Chelsea Bars, and they were nominated by Jason Shade. We have a hospitality room before games. I'm not really sure how that works. I guess the athletes from the other team were invited in, or the coaches, right?
Usually the coaches,
Okay.
and referees, any officials, administrators from either school are always invited.
Okay. Well, anyway, they donate over 200 wings for the hospitality room each time. They also support the booster golf outing with monetary donations and gift prizes for the door prizes. So thank you to Roosters. And I'll make sure I get the certificate out there.
And I'll see like center.
You're good. Thank you.
Oops, sorry. Microphone got in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate the businesses because, all these things they do for us are just like icing on the cake, and it's just wonderful. Next we have, are we ready for our April Student of the Month? So we need Ellie Harris to come up from Mark Twain Elementary School.
Wow, you really got dressed up for tonight, didn't you?
The Miamisburg April District Student of the Month is Ellie Harris. Ellie was nominated by her teacher, Sarah Slamka. Mrs. Slamka said, "It is my privilege to nominate Ellie Harris for Student of the Month." Ellie is a second grade student who exemplifies all four of our Mark Twain PBIS expectations by being respectful, responsible, a problem solver, and a peacemaker every day. Ellie excels at being a peacemaker because she shows compassion to everyone she encounters. She is always willing to help others, whether it be assistance in the classroom, in the hallway, at recess, or special area classes. She is very respectful and cares deeply about the feelings of others. Ellie is a friend to all and offers a helping hand to any student or teacher in need. Ellie shows responsibility daily in the classroom. From the moment she comes in, she jumps right into our morning routine. She reminds students of our class expectations and always keeps her desk and area clean. She is also always willing to volunteer to help with any task. Ellie is truly a pleasure to have in class. For these reasons and so many more, I highly recommend Ellie Harris for Student of the Month.
Ellie, we'd like to present you with a medallion for Student of the Month. So that is for you. And tell us who you brought along tonight with you. Any special guests? So did you drive or did they drive? whatever they have planned, right? Okay. Well, congratulations. Have a wonderful summer, and we're so proud of you. You're welcome. You're gonna get a picture. You guys wanna come up?
Come on, Tracy.
I know I've been saying she looks so nice. See it on this side. Special guest. Congratulations again.
And congratulations, Ally. Is she as fun as her mom? That's what I want to know. Okay, next we have our May Student of the Month, Jocelyn Harrell from Kinder Elementary School. Come on up.
The Miamisburg May District Student of the Month is Jocelyn Harrell. Jocelyn was nominated by Principal Rebecca Huber and Counselor Madison Schaefers. They said, Kinder is proud to nominate Jocelyn Harrell. Jocelyn is an exemplary Kinder Knight and a true PAX leader. She exhibits all the qualities of care, citizenship, acceptance, respect, and excellence. Jocelyn is a great citizen at Kinder. She always makes the right choice and is a role model to her peers. We can count on Jocelyn to make good decisions in and out of the classroom. She is always honest and willing to help with any situation at school. Jocelyn is the first one to reach out to her classmates and friends when they need help. She is accepting of all students and works well with others. Jocelyn respects herself, her classmates, and the adults. It is not unusual to see Jocelyn saying good morning to every adult she passes as she enters the school building. Jocelyn truly enjoys school and takes an active role in her learning. In addition to holding herself to the level of excellence, Jocelyn is also encouraging to her peers. The staff and students of Kinder Elementary are not the only ones who think so highly of Jocelyn. Her mom recognizes the same qualities at home. Jocelyn's mom says that she is always honest and loves to help others. Jocelyn is a great big and little sister. She loves to make people laugh and is very funny. Jocelyn loves spending time with her cats and helping her Nana in the garden. She also enjoys fashion, makeup, and playing outside. According to Mom, Jocelyn is an all-around great kid, and we couldn't agree more. Miamisburg May District Student of the Month, Jocelyn Harrell.
On behalf of the board, we want to present you with this medallion. Sir, you're very welcome. So what do you think? And do you have any special guests that you brought this evening? Hey, do you want to come on up and we'll get their picture too? So what are you gonna do this summer? Whatever your mom thinks, are you gonna give her any input into those plans? I bet she will, right?
Every day of my life.
I think Mrs. Huber wants to be in that picture, Mrs. Kelly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all because I'm nervous.
Mrs. Hubert's gonna be very proud of you, Mr. Holmes. Congratulations again. Have a great summer. You're ready. Thank you for sharing her with us.
Congratulations, and I really like that, that she's considered to be honest. I think that's such a wonderful trait. Next, we have recognition of the Miamisburg Fine and Performing Arts. recognize all of our art teachers for the District Fine Arts Festival. It hasn't been able to be held for a couple of years, but all of our art teachers, elementary, middle school, and high school, have this great event out at the high school. I don't know if anyone was able to attend, but it's really phenomenal, and really showcases the work, the great artwork that we have here in our district. And then our music teachers for all the concerts. Once again, we were talking outside in this corridor here about how Miamisburg has some amazing art teachers at music teachers, art teachers too, of course, at every level. We're just very blessed. And then, of course, the Miamisburg High School wins for a historical year. They basically were named the Winter Guard International Open Class Gold medalist. So that's of all the wins in their division in this country, they won first place. And that's pretty amazing and exciting too. Then the Miamisburg Theater for spring and fall plays. I forget the name. Oh, Robin Hood was the spring play, and then the winter play, and then the Schoolhouse Rocks was the spring play. Conjunction, yeah. And it's so good to see those theater productions back in our school district. And once again, we have amazing talent and amazing theater teachers or instructors. So thank you so much. We appreciate all of that. And next we have Jane Chance Elementary School.
We're gonna call up the folks that are
Yep.
here.
Oh, I
And
didn't
we're
even
gonna
know.
get a picture and
Okay,
a
good. I'm
certificate
sorry.
for 'em.
I
It's
guess I
fine.
didn't, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm a little rusty here on this. Okay. So all the art teachers, no, the music teachers.
And we'll recognize everyone, but if they're
Okay,
not here.
okay, great.
So is Brenda with us tonight, Brenda Williams?
No, we got Ben
Thank you. I'm
Davis,
sorry. I didn't know.
Marissa?
Wendy Wagner,
Congratulations.
Noel Holman,
Thank you.
and Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren.
I know that the band had their,
They have their awards tonight.
several talented. You're welcome, thank you. The art show was a great success. I wonder, do we track attendance? I wonder if
Oh.
there's a way we could tell how many folks we
I
have.
don't know. It,
Oh, did I set yours down?
that would be.
I know I signed it, I remember signing it,
Yeah.
my name to yours, Lauren.
I know it was really crowded by 10 o'clock, wasn't it, Mr. Davis? The art show was crowded by 10 o'clock. It was, yeah.
Okay,
Amazing.
well, Lauren, it's okay. Yours? I know, you know where I was. I too. have one. So,
Oh. All right. So next we have the Jane Chance Elementary School presentation by Dale Geyer and Casey Fife.
Your Canva, right?
Canva, yeah. Thank you for your time. First off, it's not about me, it's about the kids. I brought my student council here. I have 6 representatives to join me here. They're actually doing the presentation. So, and Mrs. Fife is our student council representative. Also behind the scenes work was done by Miss Jessica Lay. So I'd like to bring up Mila Klunt, Silas Kabir, come on up. Just gonna stand up, be recognized. Harper Lane, right, there we go. Shikemi Faloa, Stella Hazel, and Eve Willman. And then Mrs. Fife, of course. And then they're gonna take over, right? So come on, it's all yours, deep breath. Stella's up.
Pull the microphone down real close. Oh,
Here at JCE, our environmental impact is to hopefully spread the Going Greener project across the Miamisburg City School District to petitionally reach other school districts.
Composting and recycling. Here at JCE, we would like to compost and recycle, but composting and recycling are very different things. Some of the differences between composting and recycling are: recycling is a relatively fast way to turn used products into other functional items. Recycling also uses fewer resources than composting. With composting, the items are being turned into soil over time. To compost, it takes quite a while for items to properly be disposed of. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Reducing is when a person tries to lower the number of products that they use. Reusing is when a person takes an old product and reuses it for a different purpose. And recycling is when a person converts waste into reusable materials. The effect plastic has on our environment. Plastic that is buried in landfills can secrete harmful chemicals into the air and groundwater. Groundwater gets used by many different water sources. Fossil fuels are very important, and 4% of the whole world's oil production is used to make plastic. Plastic is already extremely harmful to the environment, but to make it is using up our resources. The effect of paper on our environment. Paper can have many different effects on our environment. When the paper does break down in a landfill, usually the paper doesn't break down for quite a while. When the paper doesn't break down, it can harm our environment and the animals in it. The impacts of paper in landfills are air, water, and land pollution. The effect of styrofoam on our environment. Styrofoam is a commonly used material today. It can be used for home insulation, lightweight, protective packaging, and more. There are also disadvantages which are taken into consideration. Styrofoam contains styrene, which can drain from styrofoam cups, especially when heated. Styrene is a health hazard that can cause contagious skin and eye irritation, headaches, and weakness. Styrofoam can take up about 30% of landfills, and 2.3 million tons of it is accumulated each year in landfills. Styrene comes from petroleum, which can deplete the ozone layer and contaminate landfills. Styrofoam is a non-biodegradable product and can take up to 500 years or more to degrade. Our new recycling program at JCE, we have already changed some of our things with how we recycle. Some of our teachers had recycling bins, but they were small and they had to recycle on their own. On top of that, doing all of their work at JCE, we decided that we didn't want that load on our teachers. We thought that we could make sure every teacher in the building would be able to help our planet without taking up their time to recycle. So we replaced the old recycling bins with new ones and gave the teachers that didn't have one a bin. Then we also took a load off the teachers having to empty their own bins. Our composting. Right now, we are hoping to recycle all food scraps, considering that it's the most waste of the school products. It would be a big step forward, so we're going to need a lot of help from our community. Through researching for eco-friendlier options for our cafeteria, we have found our new costs are more expensive. However, Mr. Geyer has recently found an American-made option that is even more affordable.
This is Ms. Ratcliffe, and we're going to be asking her certain questions about how she feels about going green. So, question one, how do you feel about the Going
founders to support Going Greener, napkin dispensers look for a greener fork option.
To 2023 and beyond, identifying composting areas at school, student business communities, involvement and efforts, increased home recycling efforts, changing how other parts of the school to help go greener, such as reducing papers used in classroom.
Will you help us spread the word around about recycling across all of Miamisburg schools? Let's educate our students and staff about recycling. Let's collaborate to make a greener community. Let's innovate new ideas for going green. Let's inspire others to join our recycling initiative. Thank you for listening to our presentation.
Thank you. That was excellent.
I'm just so proud and tickled of the work they've done. And I did just bring so you guys could feel the difference between paper and plastic. So these are actually paper that are made of corn fibers. So I brought this for you guys to see and pass down so if you ever want to see them for sure. But they don't feel any different than the plastic that we're currently using. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good
Nice
job.
work. Impressive.
Thank you so much. That's important work, and the future is your future. So anything you can do to make this earth better, it's in your hands. Thank you.
Great job. Come on,
We'll
they
move.
should just come on up here to the front table.
Yeah. All right, next we'll move on to our board discussion, and that's the 5-year forecast update by John Epsey.
So it's going to go out of order, Steve. Can you
Okay.
go to slide 11?
Slide 11.
I'm doing it now.
Oh, you're doing it.
Yeah, I got it.
Were you guys going back and forth or what?
I think we were
I'm like,
going back.
it's not scrolling, but it is scrolling.
So first, starting with the 5-year forecast presentation, I wanted to talk a little bit about why we do this and why it comes in November now instead of October. It used to be that some districts that were maybe going on the ballot in November for issues would turn in a forecast in October, and then it would be immediately wrong if they did pass or didn't pass their issue. So they moved it to November and May. The idea here with the May forecast is we have a lot more actuals than we did estimates in November. It's required of ODE. It's an ODE requirement that we submit this, and that's just so the state can look at our financial health and determine where we are and if they need to get involved with anything. we're primarily looking at just the general fund and any other emergency level funds, the 016. And even though we do have an emergency levy, it's not the type of emergency levy that would be in the 016 fund. And then any debt service that would have gone to the general fund, and ours is a standalone in our bond fund. So really what we're looking at is simply the general fund. The 5-year forecast is really outlining the general fund and none of the others. And I put here on this slide all of the other funds or groupings of funds that we have, and this is just the 001 general fund. Some other funds are tied to the general fund in the way that we spend funds. So PI, or permanent improvement. Some districts don't have permanent improvement levies. We do have one that is continuing, and we're very appreciative that the community has put that faith in the school district in terms of PI funds. But when we utilize the capital plan that's part of the strategic plan, we're able to ensure that we use PI funds appropriately and we can plan. And that allows us to keep from dipping into the general fund. Also, I wanted to talk about the ESSER and the CRF funds. Miamisburg has or will receive $14.49 million in ESSER funds and coronavirus relief funds. These were used primarily for salaries and benefits, addressing learning loss, HVAC, and other building updates that were needed, that were able to alleviate funds from permanent improvement and to be able to get some projects done that would have been far down the line otherwise. Also learning supplies. And then in the coronavirus relief fund, that was primarily used for connectivity for e-learning in last school year, and also PPE. So those funds are important because they actually mask some trends that we see in our general fund. So this on the left side is a very condensed version of our 5-year forecast for our projections for 2022 that is part of the 5-year forecast. And the reason that I bring this to your attention is that 14.49 million, if we were to divide that by our projected expenditures for 2022, you'll notice that those funds will be 26%. So the way that I like to look at this is, if we were thinking about our own personal finances, if we were given essentially a reprieve of paying 26% of our personal expenditures for a year, that would be a great thing. But one thing that would likely happen is that we would go back to our regular spending habits the next year, and that's kind of what's happening. And now in that little anecdote that I just gave you, think about the money lasting for 3 years or being spread out over 3 years. And so as we look into the next slide that shows the abbreviated forecast, you can see that in the blue shaded or the blue box area, that is where we're showing either our positive amount, which would mean that our revenues are greater than our expenses. And if we see a negative amount, that means that our expenses are greater than our revenues. So you'll see that we're projected to end this year with a 1.9 million surplus, but every other year go into negative spending, which is really what is going to erode away our cash balance as a district. So one notable thing is, looking between fiscal year 23 and 24, you'll see a large jump, and that's because our ESSER funds are expended when we start fiscal year 24. So everyone that was being paid from the ESSER funds will come into the general fund. And that's every other change that you see is simply the steps of our staff moving up, and then projected percentage base increases that are factored into the forecast. You'll notice that in fiscal year 26, we're projected to have a negative cash balance of 1.79 million. And I'll talk about that a little bit later and kind of sum up how we got there. But I can tell you that this number looked far different in November. And so some of the things that we've looked at is stretching the ESSER dollars another year. And that's happened primarily through collaboration with the cabinet and also building administration. And so that's why we're able to be less negative in that fiscal year 26. I'd also like to point out what would happen, since we're going to be talking a little bit later about the resolution to proceed with substitute levy. What would happen if those monies were not factored in? And you can look in the red box area and see that we were still, the fiscal year 22 number is still the same, and fiscal year 23 is still the same. But in fiscal year 24, you see that the negatives start becoming far greater, and that's as we start to, lose those renewal levy funds, if that issue were to not pass. And then you can see that the cash balance actually goes negative in fiscal year 25 and is 18.85 million negative in fiscal year 26. So it's a swing of about $17.1 million over the 5-year forecast as it sits now. Also, if we look at a visual representation of those renewals and what they mean in terms of our revenues, you can see that the top pink or tan area, you can see that is the projection of how much those renewals factor into our revenues. And you can see that even with those renewals, the expenses are still greater than our revenues. But this is essentially showing us, assuming we have those funds, we would still be 1.79 million negative in fiscal year 26. So basically just a visual representation of the last slide. I want to start to break down all the components of our revenues so we can kind of go through what those look like. You can see here, real estate is by far our largest component of revenues. And again, out in 24, 25, and 26, you can see those shaded areas at the top representing the renewal revenues. If we were to see fiscal year 27, that renewal area would double because we would have all 14 million tied up into that renewal amount. Because if we think of our emergency levy that we have that expires in 23 and our substitute levy that expires in 25, if we add those two amounts together, we come to 14 million. As we look at specifically real estate or property taxes, this has been the trend. So you can see that if we add those shaded areas in 24, 25, 26, we are seeing slight increases. That's because the district is on the 20 mil floor, and any kind of increase in property value the district is actually seeing. If the district weren't on the 20 mil floor, there would be a reduction factor, and it would kind of flatline our revenues. When we look at unrestricted state aid, you'll notice that there's a drop between fiscal year 21 and 22. This is primarily due to the Fair School Funding Plan. So the district receives less funding from the state because of the plan, but we also have less expenditures too, which I'll get into a little bit later. Also, you can see that there's a small tick down in 24, 25, 26, and that's just because we're projected to have slightly lower enrollments each year. This is our district educated enrollment, and you can again see how it drops off. This is banded, so the blue is showing our kindergartners. Orange is grade 1 through 3, gray is 4 through 8, yellow is 9 through 12. And this is district educated, meaning that they live in the district, they're coming to school at Miamisburg City Schools. When we look at restricted state aid, you'll notice that there is a large change between fiscal year 21 and 22. This is because the Fair School Funding Plan increases our restricted state aid because the success and wellness funds that used to be set aside before are now actually coming into the general fund. Our other revenue, and this is something that we talked about at the last board meeting, was looking at House Bill 126 and its effect on our 5-year forecast. We're projected, due to House Bill 126, which eliminates the school district to receive direct payments, which coincidentally is one of the things that business owners and school districts agree on the most of the current Board of Revision process. We're projected to lose $200,000 a year. I will tell you that a lot of businesses right now are trying to hurry up and meet that 7/1 deadline, so I have a couple of these later on the agenda to approve for settlements. I expect to have several more on June 28th at our next board meeting because businesses are trying to get ahead of the 7/1 deadline of direct payments to school districts. Also, other revenues also have percentages on investments. So, there's a huge drop between 2019 and 2020 because the investment revenue, and also this is where our TIF monies come into the district. And you can see that there was someone that had been late in 2018. They paid in 2019, and then it reverted back to 2020, and someone paid late. And so it's kind of up and down due to those variations in when we receive our TIF payments. If we look at expenditures at a glance, what I wanted to show is that in 21, 22, and 23, and even parts of 2020, what ended up happening was a lot of our expenditures were masked by either school closures and not spending as much money, or the influx in ESSER dollars and coronavirus relief funds. So that dotted red line is kind of showing where the trend would have been had those things not happened. And you can see that if you kind of ignore 21, 22, and 23, there's a clear trend that's continue to show those expenditures. Primarily salaries and benefits, they represent currently about 87% of our total expenditures as a school district, with purchase services being another. You'll notice, however, that purchase services drop, and that's because of the Fair School Funding Plan and the gray bars, which I'll get into in just a little bit. Again, salaries are doing the same exact thing that total expenditures are doing. Because we had the elimination of overtime when schools were shut down for some of our classified staff, we also have masking of moving salaries and benefits to the ESSER funds. And so when we look at 21, 22, and 23, it really masks the trends of our salaries, and benefits follow suit as well. I think it's just interesting to see how you can look at the total expenditures, salaries, and benefits, and you see the same trend all the way through. When we look at purchase services, the Fair School Funding Plan really had an effect between fiscal year 21 and 22, and it's going to continue to have that going forward because we don't pay open enrollment out anymore. We don't receive money for the students that don't come to Miamisburg. And I have another chart that I'm going to get into. The blue line at the bottom is kind of signifying some of the inflationary costs that we're seeing right now. And we expect that to, as gas prices go up, businesses are passing those costs on to consumers, and we are a consumer in this case. So that's why that's projected to go up at the tick that it is. When we look at Fair School Funding Plan and purchase services, look at the huge change that happens between fiscal year 21 and 22. This is because our open enrollment, which is represented by the red area, goes away completely. And also the community school, which was in the gray, that goes away completely. And that's why our purchase services dropped so much from last year to this year. Because open enrollment, when we had to pay districts that when students were going out, that's considered a purchase service. Also, when we look at supplies, because of school closures and maybe having supplies on hand, our 2020 and our 21 supply purchases were very, very low. It's projected to go up, and it did go up in 2022, but it's projected to go up even further in 2023 due to inflation. This is where we're going to see our bus fuel is purchased this way. And so I've projected in a 12% increase in this area, and next year in 2024 we're expecting it to be 8%, and then to start leveling off to the normal percentage increases that we see in supplies at 3%. I tried to kind of show exactly where that is, and you can see again in supplies in the pink arrow as it goes down. That's because we just didn't spend as much with the first year of COVID. And then it shot back up in 22 because it was much more of a normal year than the year prior. when we look at the Fair School Funding Plan and we talked about restricted and unrestricted revenue, you can really see it on this chart where the green gets bigger, which is restricted, and then the tan area gets smaller. And that's just signifying what's happening with our revenues from the state under the Fair School Funding Plan. And then this chart is showing the difference in expenses and revenues. So if you look at the blue area, and this number actually changed from the first time I showed you this chart. The blue area, the minus 403,186, that is a change in revenue that we're getting from the state through the foundation program. It was like 739,000. It's because when we trued up to the simulation that the state had provided that the forecast was built on, we actually received $300,000 more in special ed transportation funding. And so that's why that has shrunk from the $700,000 rate to now the $403,000 rate. And so that's less revenue, but the orange signifies less expenditures. So the gray, where it says 1.59 million, that is what our net change is under Fair School Funding. So if you look at just the expenditures, you think everything's great. You look at the revenues, you think, oh, we lost money. But when you put it all together, the Fair School Funding Plan is actually bringing $1.59 million more into the school district. So this is a really good way of, I think, showing it and making it, allowing us to see the effects of the Fair School Funding Plan. Again, this is the forecast summary again, and I've been asked, since we're going to talk about the renewal issue or the substitute issue that we're going to be talking about in just a little bit, what is the difference? It's the difference between the blue box and the red box. The blue box allows us to still be deficit spending, but get almost through the forecast without going cash negative. And the red box obviously shows that expenses overtake revenues and cash balance a lot sooner, and we go negative a year earlier and are very negative at the end of the 5-year forecast. When we look at the cash balances too, this is another way to look at the variations of what we could be expecting. The blue is showing cash balances without renewals. The gray is showing the cash balance with the renewals. And then the orange is showing cash balance without like any encumbrances that might be carried over. So every year we typically have POs that are open across the fiscal year because we have to make purchases. And so it's basically taking out those encumbrances and just like really looking at the cash balance and a totalitarian in total. And then obviously we haven't modeled any new money levies yet. And so that's what the yellow is showing. It kind of flat lines. I like to compare the cash balances of where we are and our expenditures per day with our ODE-like districts and also our county districts. So you can see where we fall. The green is representing how much it costs to operate the district per day, and we're just a little bit north of $140,000. And then you can see that the dot is representing how many cash days we have. And this is looking currently like we're going to be about 142. And you can see how we stack up against the other like districts that ODE groups us with. So plain local, if you remember when we looked at the PI score, they were the one that had the really high PI score with the really low cost. And so it looks like, you know, for whatever reason, their cash balance is almost at 220. And they're the highest. When we look within the county, you can see where we are, and really the people that are skewing this would be Dayton because of how high their expenditures are per day. It's over $600,000 per day to operate there. But also Jefferson Township has a really high amount. They have over a year, almost a year and a third of cash on hand right now. And you can see that we're, you know, how we fall in respect to all the other county schools. So, what does this all mean? I think that when we look at the forecast and we look at the last 3 forecasts, including this one that I've brought before the board tonight, you can look at the May 21 forecast, and I want you to think that is really year 5, which I've outlined in the top, is fiscal year 25. So that forecast projected that the district would be negative $7 million at the end of 25, with the renewals in mind. The one that I filed in November was negative $7.9 million in fiscal year 26. So while we were able to push out a little bit from 25 going negative, it's still going quite negative in year 5. The one that I'm bringing to you tonight, we're looking at negative 1.79 million. And I think that what I'm trying to the point that I'm trying to make is we've had a lot of conversations as a cabinet, as a school district. I've been going out talking to buildings, lots of conversation with administrators and staff, teachers, classified non-bargaining staff. We have made some changes, right? And we talked about those efficiencies, and it's been a little bit uncomfortable for some of us because we're getting out of our comfort zone. But getting a little bit out of our comfort zone has yielded these kind of results. And so I feel that this is a positive turn for us to be able to look at where we are. Yes, we're still negative. I think that we're eventually leading to the point where we're going to have to ask for new money from the taxpayers. But when we do that, these changes that we made have hopefully made that ask a little bit more palatable. And I just want the community to know that we're working to really examine every expenditure that we bring before the board and every expenditure that the school district is incurring. And also the revenues too. So, we're looking at all these areas, and I just wanted to kind of point that out. And I think these numbers are a very tangible thing that we can look at. And even though they're projections, we can, I think, hang our hat that we're heading in the right direction. So some final takeaways. We're not getting a ton of new money from House Bill 110, which is a fair school funding plan. It is 1.5 million, but when you factor that into our expenditures, it's it's about 2 to 3%. House Bill 166. Remember that was the cuts that we received in fiscal year 20 and 2021. Those funds are still having an impact on our forecast, because if we think those funds that we would have had, the compounding of those funds could have had a major change. But in fiscal year 21, though, we did have that cut reduced in half. The ESSER funds have very much changed our financial future, at least for the short term, because without the ESSER funds, all of the year 5 would be now in terms of our expenditures taking over our revenues and our cash balance. We do not know what the future of the Fair School Funding Plan is going to be, because we are dealing with a 5-year forecast that is crossing several biennium budgets. And House Bill 110 takes 6 years to be fully phased in. And I've taken a very conservative approach to those percentages of the phase-in. I have it maxing out at 66% and not 100%. So that is still very much a factor that we need to look at. Programs like College Credit Plus and excess costs and tuition are going to continue to go up. So we have to be aware of that. And, looking at the renewals, we will have a positive cash balance up through fiscal year 25, which is year 4 of this forecast. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Well, we'll vote on it later, or you'll vote on it later. So if you have questions and something strikes you, just please ask them.
Thanks, John. Next, we'll go to new business with the intent to proceed with a substitute tax levy. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following resolution declaring intent to proceed with election of the question of substitution of an emergency tax levy and a renewal of a substitute levy. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the intent to proceed with the substitute tax levy.
Second.
Okay, first by Toadvine and a second by Lewis.
Sorry if any of you are motion sick. I got there pretty fast. I did want to prepare some data to bring to you as we look at this resolution. I talked about levy types at the last meeting. We currently have an emergency levy that expires in fiscal year 23 and a substitute levy that expires in fiscal year 25. What this resolution does is allow us to combine the emergency and the substitute into one ask, which is at the same rate, which would be, if you add the emergency and the substitute together, it comes to $14 million. So that's the way it will appear on the ballot as a $14 million substitute levy. And I do want to bring up the fact that it's fixed dollar, so that same amount will be collected. The only way that a tax rate would go up would be if there was new construction, or it would be essentially be new construction on land where there wasn't any kind of improvement to land. So I think that that's important. This levy is for day-to-day operating, so this is to be able to keep the lights on, pay the staff, operate the buses, things like that. It's purely operational. There is no building that's part of it. It's purely an operational piece. The reason that we didn't look at just renewing the emergency levy is that the data that we see from other school districts is that taxpayers do not want to keep coming back to the ballot to approve, and we would essentially have an emergency levy renewal this year, and in 2 years, a substitute levy renewal. So essentially this captures both renewals in one issue. The reason we stay away from the operating levy is because, or operating millage levy, is simply because we're on the 20 mil floor, and it's more advantageous to the school district to be able to do a fixed dollar and not affect coming off the floor. I did want to show this this graph that shows the tax rates. You can see that when we utilize our expense in millage and our emergency and substitute millage, we are the 5th lowest taxed school district in the county. We are the lowest by millage in the county. So if you just look at the orange section, we're the lowest. The next closest is 21.59. So I think that's important to see that as we look at how we compare to others. It is also important to know that a mill in our district, it does not equal the same amount in another district. It's all based off the valuation and the total valuation of residential and commercial businesses in those districts. When we look at property tax revenue, as I said before in the forecast, it is a large portion. It is the largest portion of our revenues. It's projected to be, 30.2 million this year and next year. When we look at how it stacks up against other revenue categories, the green is our unrestricted state aid in. The red is the restricted, so like the success and wellness and economic disadvantage. You can see that the blue area, which is our property tax revenue, is by far the largest. When we look at what that renewal means to the district, it's that area in pink at the top. And again, if we had fiscal year 27 here, we're going to start to see 14 million at the top. So that pink area is going to get much bigger, and it just continues to be to get even more important in future years after the forecast drops off here. So again, we have an emergency levy of 6.775 million and a substitute levy of 7.225 million. Adding those amounts together, we come up to 14 million, and that is what this combined renewal or combined substitute is essentially doing. And it is going for continuing status, so this would be something that would be continuous in terms of we would not have to go back to the taxpayers and ask for this funding again. It would continue on. Again, when we look at why is this important? The gold area shows the revenue in the next 3 years, or next 4 years, but if we look at fiscal year 27, that number is going to be up at 14 million. So it's a really large chunk of revenue for the district when we add those two together and create this substitute levy. Also, it's important to know, if I were looking at this, I would say, well, you just told me it was a 6.775 levy, but I'm seeing 6.827 million. That's because we sometimes have delinquencies on tax collections, and we receive different percentages of those taxes at different times throughout the year. Typically, our first collection is 52%, and our second one is 48%. And that's kind of why you see it looking at that 6.8 million. It's just there were delinquencies that are feeding over, that are hanging out there and adding to that 6.775 million. Also, I think it's important to look at the two blue boxes where you're seeing the ending balance with the renewal or the ending balance without. And that difference in the 1.79 million and the 8.89 million, where I have the red arrow, is obviously a large sum of money. And that's why it's really important for us to be able to go to the taxpayers to seek this renewal. I want to talk about our savings measures, because it's not all about asking the taxpayers to approve things. It's what can we do internally to continue to save. We have the school bus grant that we're in the process. I believe we should be getting those buses soon. 4 new buses for the price of 2. The emergency connectivity grant, where Dr. Blessing wrote that grant, where we were able to get 1,700 new Chromebooks at 0 cost to our taxpayers. And that's saving money in the PI, which then allows us to save money in the general fund. And also evaluation of our future contracts. We've looked at several contracts. I think we've reduced our purchase services by about $400,000 now, just going into next year. And some of that savings is year-over-year savings. And that's why you can see that large change in our cash balance. Also looking at our capital planning and not thinking about a break-fix mentality, but forward thinking of how can we make sure that we're taking care of our equipment and ensuring that we're keeping up with the maintenance and replacing as we can in a logical manner, and also saving money in case we have a rainy day where a boiler breaks like we had last year. And also evaluation of the staffing levels when a retirement or a resignation occurs. All of these things together have led to, again, this slide that I just talked about in the 5-year forecast of getting us from that negative 7 million in year 5 to negative 1.79 million. So we've shaved a good chunk of those expenditures off, and we're going to continue to be collaborative with not only the community but within the district to do what we have to do to make sure that when we have to ask for additional funds, that it's going to be as palatable as possible for our taxpayers and our community. And that's it.
That's all? You sure?
Yeah, I'm going to have to take a drink of water after that, I think. Sorry, lots of words, but hopefully it all makes sense, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, you've broken it down very, I don't want to say elementary, but so that I can understand it, that's for sure. It's very helpful.
Appreciate that.
questions? All right. Thanks, John. And, I think one of the reasons we don't have a lot of questions is because you really filled us in well over and over again. And, we've seen this a lot, and we appreciate how well you communicate with us.
Thank you.
So let's do roll call.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes?
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Next, we have the first reading of the 2023-24 calendar. The recommended action is to have that first reading. Mr. Hellman?
So we always plan the school calendar out 2 years in advance. We work collaboratively with our MCTA bargaining unit to go through that. And so if you remember last year, the board asked us to look back at kind of going back to our pre-COVID number of student contact days. And so that's what we worked with MCTA. And I do believe when you look at this calendar, we have put 4 student days back into the calendar from where it was, from where it'll be from next year's calendar. This is the 23-24.
Any questions? All right. We'll move on to the consent agenda. And first we have the approval of overnight extended student trips. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the overnight extended student trips. Kevin Osborne, the Greece student field trip. Stephanie Osborne, Greece, June 3rd, 2022 through June 13th, 2022. Tim Freeze, the boys basketball camp. Tim, Chris Johnson, Nolan Robinson, and Connor Brown for the boys basketball camp, Capital University, Columbus, Ohio, June 15th through the 16th, 2022. The girls basketball camp for Allison James, Brooke Adams, John Brackman, Danny Norman, at Transylvania University in Lexington, Kentucky, June 21st through the 23rd, 2022. And next we do the approval of out-of-state overnight student trips. And it is recommended that we approve these out-of-state overnight travel. Dave Cookson and Laura Stafford for the state softball tournament in Akron, Ohio, June 2nd through June 4th, 2022. Kevin Osborne and Stephanie Osborne again for the Greece student field trip. Dave Cookson and Laura Stafford for the state baseball tournament in Akron, Ohio, June 9th through the 11th, 2022. Tim Freeze, Chris Johnson, Nolan Robinson, Connor Brown, once again for the boys basketball camp. And once again, Allison James, John Brackman, Brooke Adams, Danny Norman for the girls basketball team camp. And then next we go to C, approval of class of 2022 graduates. Michael Black, principal of Miamisburg High School, has submitted the attached class of 2022 diploma list. These students have been recommended for graduation pending satisfactory completion of all state and local requirements. Next we have D, approval of student handbooks for the 2022-23 school year. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the student handbooks for Maddox Lane Primary School, the elementary K through 5, Miamisburg Middle School, and Miamisburg High School for the 2022-23 school year. Next, the approval of an instructional materials adoption. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the use and purchase of the following instructional materials for K through 5 in high school math, K through 5 everyday math, algebra, geometry, and algebra 2 and vision math, pre-calculus, DMANA, pre-calculus, graphical, numerical, Algebraic Common Core, 10th edition, in My Math Lab, AP Calculus, Domena, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, I'm sorry, and My Math Lab, Statistics, Blumen Statistics, 10th edition, in My Math Lab, Statistics Honors, The Practice of Statistics, 6th edition, in Sapling Learning Plus, and then College Prep Math, Alex. And then F, approval of tuition-free senior enrollment. It is recommended by the superintendent and high school principal that the Board of Education approve Logan Miller for tuition-free enrollment for his senior year. This permission is only granted to a 12th grade student who previously attended Miamisburg High School as a resident pupil during their 11th grade year. And then G, approval of the revised administrative salary schedule for the 2021-22 and 22-23 school years. The superintendent and treasurer, CFO, recommend that the Board of Education approve the revised attached administrative salary schedule for 2021-22 and 22-23 school years. And then next, we have approval of consent items A through G. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve consent items A through G. Do I have a motion?
I'll move for the approval of consent items A through item G.
I second.
Okay, so first by Mr. Lewis, and then second by Mr. Daffler. All right. So go back to A.
Just the overnight trips?
Yeah,
Most of them
really,
are.
yeah, okay.
I mean, obviously, the Greece trip has been postponed, and they're finally we're just making sure that we have a current approval for A.
Okay,
And then I guess B, the same,
same for that.
one is overnight, and the other, they're all in
Yeah.
state, so.
Then we don't really need anything for the 2022 graduates.
Exciting
Approval of this-
graduation on Saturday,
Yeah.
10 a.m.
Yeah,
Nice weather, looks
and
like.
we're gonna have some nice
It's warm.
weather, yeah. And then the student handbooks, does anyone wanna talk about that?
I think Mrs. Dobson shared with you some of the
Yeah.
curricular changes already.
Yep.
I think the biggest highlight is the code of conduct. We're trying to streamline and make those kind of the same, no matter what grade level, like in terms of items for just efficiencies purposes when doing reporting and things like that, all the code of conduct line up. And as they progress through preschool to grade, high school, I think the code of conduct list grows a little bit for different infractions.
Okay. And then, I know we had the email about the instructional materials adoption, all the
Correct.
math. Anything you wanna say about that? Okay.
We've done some
Um,
pilots with some of the programs, I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
we're purchasing, so I think they all feel good about it.
Okay, and then we know about the tuition-free. Mr. Hellman, were you gonna talk about the revised administrative salary, or?
Yep.
Okay,
So, just when everyone sees revised, make it very clear, no one's getting any raises, they're all the same. The reason, as John talked about, as we look at our contracted purchase services that are out there, as you know, we purchase a lot of services from Montgomery County, Warren County, and of course, when you purchase services, you pay an overhead cost with administrative fees and all that. So, as we kind of discuss every day, ways to look and think outside of the box, we were able to bring in another occupational therapist of ours within the district. And then you have OTAs as well that we've added to the salary schedule. And those within themselves, instead of us contracting through Warren County, Montgomery County, we are saving money by having them our own. The other thing is too, is part of salary plans, those on the administrative would get the pickup of a pickup for retirement. So what we've now changed, new OTs, OTAs, all those coming in starting with the next school year, they will not have that. So that's just another way that we're trying to show to the community where we're really trying to cut down and, be wise with tax dollars and things like that. So we're excited. We have some great candidates to come in, and those costs that John shared with you tonight are kind of calculated within those as well too, of cost saving measures. So, but I just want to make sure no one's getting any increase on anything. So just to make that very clear, we've added a category to actually save us money to come into the district. So just make sure that was very clear. So
Steve, can you explain that pickup on the pickup a little bit?
yeah, or John, do you want to do?
John.
Yeah, so pickup on the pickup is essentially, if we just talk about regular pickup, let's do that first. So typically, the board is picking up 14% of both STRS and SERS employees, and then the other employees are actually paying their portion of their retirement. Pickup on the pickup means that all retirement is picked up by the board, and that's a typical thing for administrators to have that as part of the compensation package. I did want to add to, talking about the OTs and OTAs, that decision wasn't just hastily made. It was, we were able to benchmark against other districts to see what other districts offer, and we found that with those salary types, that very few districts were actually offering pickup. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? We'll do roll call then.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yep.
Okay, we'll do the human resources agenda items. And A, approval of personnel reports, certificated and classified. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel reports. Employment in the Miamisburg City School District is contingent upon the candidate submitting to and passing a BCII and FBI criminal record check in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code and pre-employment drug screening in accordance with adopted board policies. And then next, the approval of personnel report, supplemental stipend, certificated, classified. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel report, supplemental stipend, certificated, classified. Once again, the same employment clause. C, approval of human resources items A and B. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve human resources items A and B. Do I have a motion?
I move for the approval of human resources items A and B.
Second.
First by Mr. Daffler and second by Mr. Lewis. Mr. Hellman?
Nothing out of the ordinary. You'll see some of the certificated and classified just starting to grow. We've had a lot of retirements and resignations, and as John and Dr. Blessing have said before, every single position that opens up, we have a discussion, we look at it. It's a very thorough process as we go through, just to make sure that we're doing and being very good fiscal stewards of our taxpayer dollars. So we have some replacements that are in there, some resignations, spouses transferring, all those things. But we're still interviewing. It is interesting as we kind of look at the economy going on right now. We've done lots of interviews this year already, and many job offers that we've looked at, many people have not taken because of the economy and not sure where it's going and not wanting to lose maybe their seniority in other districts to come. So it's been an interesting season, and I've reached out to other HR directors, and they're having the same conversations as well. So time will tell, and it'll be interesting. So.
Anything? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
So Next, we go to agreements and contracts. Approval of the resolution declaring intent not to provide career technical education in grades 7 and 8. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following resolution declaring intent not to provide career technical education in grades 7 and 8. And then B, approval of the Mobile Health LLC agreement for the 2022-23 school year. The superintendent and the assistant superintendent, director of business, human resources, that's a long title, recommend that the Board of Education approve the following resolution and an agreement between Miamisburg City Schools and Mobile Health LLC for costs related to drug screens, pre-employment exam, NIDA 5-panel sub account 465, and recertification of T8 as listed. And then C, approval of facility use agreement with Miami Valley Child Development Centers. It is recommended by the superintendent, treasurer, CFO, and the director of business services that the district enter into a facility lease agreement with the Miami Valley Child Development Center. And then D, approval of agreement with Miamisburg Vikes Youth Football and Cheer Association. The Director of Business and Treasurer, CFO, recommend the Miamisburg City School District Board of Education approve the attached agreements with the Miamisburg Vikes Youth Football and Cheer Association. It's a 3-year agreement dated May 1, 2022 through April 30th, 2025. And then E, approval of Premier Occupational Health Agreement for the 22-23 school year. The superintendent and the assistant superintendent, director of business, human resources, recommend that the Board of Education approve the following agreement between Miamisburg City Schools and Premier Occupational Health for costs related to drug screening, vaccinations, follow-up care, and initial injury care. And then F, approval of state fund group rating and unemployment services agreement with Sedgwick Managed Care of Ohio. It is recommended by the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, director of human resources, that the Board of Education approve agreement with Sedgwick MCO for workers' compensation and unemployment compensation services. And G, approval of agreement with Healthcare Process Consulting. It is recommended by the superintendent that the Board of Education approve agreement with Healthcare Process Consulting. And H, approval of transportation agreement with the City of Miamisburg. It is the recommendation of the Treasurer, CFO, Director or Business and Transportation Supervisor to approve a transportation agreement with the City of Miamisburg. Under the terms of the agreement, Miamisburg City School District will transport pupils participating in the city's summer recreation programs to various locations throughout the state of Ohio. In return, the City of Miamisburg agrees to reimburse the Miamisburg City School District for all costs incurred. And then I, approval master service agreement with Meta Solutions, effective July 1st, 2022. It is recommended by the superintendent and the treasurer, CFO, that a core service agreement with Meta Solutions be approved effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. The core services fees for 2022 and 23 will be $16.75 per pupil. J, approval of securely filtering agreement with Meta Solutions. It is recommended by the superintendent and treasurer CFO, that a securely filtering agreement with Meta Solutions be approved effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Meta will provide the services at a cost of $5,013. K, approval of agreement with Bonefish Systems, LLC. The superintendent and the treasurer, CFO, recommend that the Board of Education approve the following agreement with Bonefish Systems, LLC for 3 years.
I move for the approval of agreement and contracts, items A through K.
Okay. All right, second.
Did you second? Did you second? No. I second.
Okay, so first by Mr. Toadvine and second by Mr. Daffler, and we'll go back start with A here. That goes way back. So,
I don't have any questions.
do you want to say? Do you want to, Mr. Hammond, do you want to talk about the career technical education?
This is
That's normal, we do it
Yeah,
every
let's
year.
keep going. Okay. Approval of the mobile health.
we have to approve that every year. We have to turn into ODE, who our provider's going to be for our bus and van drive physicals. So we have to do that every year. C deals with our preschool promise and all of those. Head Start. D, we do an agreement just like we do with MBA with WeVikes. We're going to do a 3-year agreement with them. Check base with them every year for the use of Harmon and all that. So, Premier Occupational Health, it's the pricing for this upcoming year. That has to be board approved every year to know what services they're going to provide for those. And then every year we have to approve workers' comp and unemployment. And so Sedgwick is the one that we went out and sought bids for, and it's the one we currently have, so that's a renewal. HPC, or junior head HPC, John.
Yeah, they do our consulting for Medicaid. So they're kind of helping us manage all those funds, and being sure that we're able to capture things like indirect costs for costs of administrating the Medicaid program.
And then H is one that we typically do every year in the summer. We partner with Parks and Rec. They do great summer camp programs, and we transport the kids. And they'll be using Kinder school as well, so they'll be to and from Kinder school to their places for camps.
Next one, I can talk about it. So the Meta agreement is for like Progress Book, Dazzle, our financial applications, and also the support that we receive. And also the next one, J, is the filtering of our internet that we have here. It allows us to restrict certain things to keep them to not be searchable by students. And then Bonefish Systems is our fraud prevention software. Every single time we cut checks or we pay, we are able to go in and make sure that the vendors are not on the barred list or have findings for recovery. So it's a very nice program, and we save money by doing a 3-year agreement.
Any questions or comments?
Can we do roll call? That's my question.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese.
Yes. Right, next we go to financial agenda items, and we have the approval of the district 5-year forecast. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the required May 2022 5-year forecast to be submitted to the Ohio Department of Education. And then B, we have the 018 fund budget adoption. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the 018 fund fiscal year 22 budget and purpose statements as presented. C, the 200 fund budget adoption. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the fiscal year 22 200 fund budget and purpose statements. D, approval of distribution of unused funds for class of 2022. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the transfer of unused funds from the class of 2022 fund to the Campus Quest Fund after all expenses are paid. E, temporary appropriations. It is recommended by the treasurer that the Board of Education approve the following temporary appropriations for fiscal year 23.
You don't need to
Okay,
read it.
all right. And F, set estimate versus actual variances to 0. It is recommended that the Board of Education authorizes the treasurer to set estimated amounts to the actual amounts in the accounting software. In G, settlement agreements, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the settlement agreements as presented. H, authorization for amendment to the appropriations and certificate of estimated resources. It is recommended by the treasurer CFO that the appropriations and certificate of estimated resources be amended as listed in the attached reports. And then I, approval of financial items A through H. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve financial items A through H. Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move for the approval of financial items A through H.
Second.
Okay, so first by Mr. Daffler and a second by Mr. Toadvine.
No.
Oh, sorry,
Don't insult me like that. My gosh.
Lewis. Okay, thank you. All right, and then we'll go back to Mr. SB.
Yeah, so the forecast and the assumptions are just in the format that the state needs it. I've kind of already gone over that in terms of the presentation. The 018 fund and the 200 funds, I kind of discovered that there weren't budget and purpose clauses for this, so I went and worked with all of the principals and the activity advisors, and now we have signed budget and purpose clauses that match our budgets. So we'll be doing this again at the beginning of next fiscal year before they can spend funds. Along with that, the class of 2022, to be able to use any funds that are unleft in their specific class fund, we have to have a signed form, which they did sign, and they're donating the rest of their funds to Campus Quest. The temporary appropriations are if I were to issue a future PO in June to be able to have your approval to be able to spend money for July 1. I will be bringing permanent appropriations to you next month. The setting estimate to actual variances is essentially an appropriation change and a certificate change. I'm going to set the variances to 0 with your approval. So it'll look like I was perfect on my guesses of how much we spend and how much we bring in. Settlement agreements are only allowed for this meeting and next meeting due to the House Bill 126 changes that I alluded to earlier. These are 2 settlement agreements that just kind of came across my desk just recently. H is business as usual. We're setting, just amending the appropriations and the certificate, and that's it.
Any questions, comments? Well, that was nice of the class of 2022 to donate to Campus Quest.
Very
Right.
nice.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
Okay, next we have acceptance of donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following list of donations. All monies will be used through each school's 018 account unless indicated otherwise. $150 from Mr. and Mrs. Casper to Mark Twain Elementary School for a staff appreciation luncheon. $350 from Indiana Westland to the Miamisburg City School District for mentoring services. $1,500 from Mark Twain PTA to Mark Twain Elementary School for the student outdoor garden known as Mustang Meadows. $500 from Miamisburg Helping Hands to the Miamisburg City School District for the Community Connections Program. 11 Miamisburgopoly Games valued at $275 from the Miamisburg Historical Society to Mound Elementary School. Do I have a motion?
I'll move for the acceptance of donations.
Second.
Okay, first by Mr. Lewis and a second by Mr. Toadvine. Any comments, questions?
Always nice to get donations for our
Yes.
students.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep, thank you. And then we'll do roll call.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine.
Yes.
Okay, number 10 is just information only. The next Board of Education regular meeting will be held on Tuesday, June 28th, 2022 at 6 p.m. at the City of Miamisburg Council Chambers. The Local Professional Development Committee, the LPDC of the Miamisburg City Schools, will hold their 2022-23 meetings on the following dates: September 22nd, 2022, January 19th, 2023, March 16th, 2023, May 10th, 2023. All meetings for LPDC will be held virtually during the 2022-23 school year. And then next we'll go on to our reports. So we'll start with MVCTC, Joe Isaacovich.
Good evening. Due to the late hour tonight, I'm going to opt to be very concise, and I will report on our individual students at the June meeting, so bring a dinner box with you. We held our senior recognition ceremony on Friday, May 13th. We had over 675 students in attendance at it. It was a great ceremony at Nutter, went very well. And in total, our students captured $4.7 million in scholarships. And I had the opportunity to address the students at the event. Also, I attended this past Wednesday, the 18th, the Super Summer Send-Off Lunch. This is the annual end-of-year send-off for secondary staff and to honor our retirees. And we were able to hold it in our new MAC, the Multi-Activity Center, which is huge. Also, I will be attending on June 23rd the Adult Ed Aspire graduation for our adult students that have obtained their GED. So I will be in attendance for that. Also, we will have our annual board retreat on Saturday, June 25th at 8 a.m. and basically go over curriculum, finances, and the construction progress. That's all I've got at this time. As I say, I'll give you an update on our students at the June meeting. Any questions? Okay, with that, I'll drop the mic.
Okay, thanks, Joe. And next we have our Student Achievement Liaison, Tim Lewis.
Skipping Corey.
I did? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry,
It's
Corey.
okay.
Legislative liaison. Corey.
Not too much here. Legislators were on spring recess. There's a lot of committee action going on. Senate Bill 181 will go into effect May 30th. This prohibits any school or interscholastic athletic conference or organization from restricting the ability of participants to wear religious apparel during interscholastic athletic and extracurricular activities. So that goes in effect May 30th.
Thank you. And then Mr. Lewis for the student achievement, and I think you're also going to do we have just a very short district news too,
Okay.
right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep, we did the April District Student of the Month, which was Ellie Harris. Other building students of the month for April include Bauer Elementary School, Michaela White, Bear Elementary School, Elma Lawson, Jane Chance Elementary School, Chase Grattan Dorr, Kinder Elementary School, Caden Brock, Medler View, Cohen Schock, Mound, Canaan Harper, Miamisburg Middle School, Eric Caldwell, and Miamisburg High School, Riley Lamb. Then in May, our May District Student of the Month was Jaslyn Harrell. Other building students of the month for the month of May include, for Bauer, Isabella Jones, Bear Elementary School, Molly Letner, Jane Chance Elementary School, Laquana Crawford, Mark Twain Elementary School, Elora Entry, Medler View, Cameron Lamaster, Mound, Luke McKinney, Miamisburg Middle School, Evelyn Rodas, and Miamisburg High School, Noah Engel. And our district news, the latest Making a Difference honorees are Mark Twain Elementary School Administrative Assistant Carla Jones and Mark Twain Elementary School Maintenance Custodian Jason Kirkpatrick. Their full nominations can be read on the district website at miamisburgcityschools.org. Congratulations to technology teacher Jessica Lay for receiving a grant from the Martha Holden Jennings Foundation. The grant will be used for STEM labs at Jane Chance and Kinder Elementary Schools. And that's all I have for district news.
Thank you. I think that's it for all of that. And we go down to the Board of Education and staff comments. And you want to start with Mr. Daffler?
Yes, last Friday I went to the Bear Garden Party. It was pretty awesome. Good turnout. Kids had lots of fun. Well put together. And then also a dinner last week. Bryce said Mrs. Carnegas came in to see them, and he was very excited about that, and I'm glad that she is doing well. Both my boys had her, and they really enjoyed her. So it's nice.
Talked to her today, and she's planning on being back in the fall. So
yeah, that's awesome. And then thank you to the retirees. 147 years. That's awesome. And thank you for them. That's all I got.
Thanks. Mr. Tovine?
Yeah, I thought the student presentations tonight was fun. It was fun to watch the students kind of, you could tell the different personalities just by the way they approach the mic and everything, which is kind of fun to watch. Also, congratulations to the retirees. When I was sitting there looking tonight thinking of all the ones I had in school and how old I'm getting to be, it's kind of funny to just sit back and like Brad Myers, you know, I could sit here and tell stories for the next hour, but I'm not going to about Brad Myers and a bunch that he ran with.
thank you.
And I'm going to pass it to Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. Just like everybody else, I want to thank and congratulate all of our retirees, all their years of service, and looking forward to graduation. Congratulations to all the MHS graduates of 2022, and looking forward to good weather on Saturday.
Yes, congratulations to the retirees. I just wanted to say that I really appreciated the AP Art and Research show that Megan Newton and Lisa White held last Friday. It was really interesting to talk to each student about their art project or their research project. They had a lot of passion. And then a lot of their art was certainly reflected what was going on in their own lives, and they were very open about letting the different people that came through the auditorium know how it related to their life, and they were just really awesome students. I also wanted to just congratulate. I saw where Jonathan Wade was named the baseball coach of the year, and I just that was really emotional because I know that's been a hard year for him, and you know that he recouped this whole baseball team, and they've had such success, and that had to be hard, and it could have went a different way, and it turned out to be so positive. And to thank Tracy and her husband and Mr. Geyer for coming and staying this whole time. Thank you.
It's a cheap date.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you can just have breakfast and go to the high school, so.
I was just wondering if it was getting dark or a storm outside. Stay over there, it's really dark.
Maybe a little both.
Oh, no.
I just want to say thank you to the treasurer's office staff and also Brenda for helping wade through. This is a crazy time of year in my office as we get ready for, preparing the 5-year forecast and also the levy resolution and new contracts and everything else like that. So, it takes a village, and I just want to say I appreciate all those people as well as the cabinet for, continuing to be collaborative.
As we end the school year, just 4 more student days in case anyone wasn't counting at this point. It's been a wonderful school year. Kudos to our building administrators, our wonderful staff, our students, our families, all of you for supporting all of the great things that have happened this year. It's always nice to end on a successful note for a school year, and I definitely think we can say that. In our district. Excited about graduation on Saturday. Have been attending all of the 5th grade DARE graduations happening this week and next. So a lot of things to celebrate in Miamisburg, and we're just excited to wrap up the year and also start planning for next year. For any of our families listening, we're going to start the school year a little differently next year. We're going to start with some phase-in days. Had a lot of talks with staff this year just about how to better support our students. So on the first day of school, our kindergarten always kind of phases in so they can kind of get adjusted and do some testing and screenings. Our 1st grade through 5th grade are well versed and understand the procedures and policies of school. So they will start on the first day, August 15th. But our 6th grade and 9th grade and any new students at the middle school and high school will attend that day. And then on the 2nd day, the 10th through 12th and 7th through 8th grade, and 8th grade will attend. So we're hoping to have some in-person first day of school orientations for our new middle schoolers and new high schoolers to ease them in. And we had some great responses to our community survey that we put out last month. And we did get a lot of concerns about some middle school and high school behaviors in terms of vaping in the restrooms, and even possibly some disturbances, whether it be a fight or something. So we are looking at some vape detectors and noise detectors that would alert us to any type of disturbance in the restroom. So we're hoping to get those installed before school starts to help just be preventative and help our students, all of them, be safe, and I'll also help those ones that might not be making the best choices when they're in the restroom, so that it'll protect our physical buildings, but also just the well-being of all of our students and staff. So Mr. Hellman, take it away.
Right. Not much to say. I'd say ditto, ditto, ditto to what everyone has said, but to our graduates, congratulations on a great, what I call Viking voyage. Once a Viking, always a Viking. And enjoy the weekend with graduation. And a big thank you to all of our parents and staff and students for getting through a year. I think the students have hung in, their staff have hung in there, and parents have been supportive. And we're looking for next year just a nice, smooth, normal start to the year and to go through. But kudos to all three of those groups. And that's it.
And John, we forgot to say thanks for your great reports. They're awesome.
Yes.
Wonderful
Thank you.
5-year forecasts, by the way. We
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, now, we need to, all right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, first by Toadvine, second by Lewis. Roll call.
Mr. Daffler,
Yes.
Mr. Toadvine,
Yes.
Mrs. Neese,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
we're adjourned.